At first glance, some stories seem quite ordinary, but with every new detail you learn, the picture changes completely, and slowly it dawns on you. The best scripts are written by life itself. The story begins with John and Anne Darwin. They had known each other for a long time, and John courted Anne for many years before they finally married in 1973. Over the course of their marriage, they had 2 sons, Mark and Anthony. For most of his working life, 18 years, John was a mathematics teacher at a local school. Anne stayed home to raise the children in the early years, then later worked as a secretary in a small local company. The truly remarkable part of the story starts in 2002. By then, John and Anne were in their 50s. Their sons were grown up and living independently, and the couple resided in the small seaside town of Seaton Carew on the northeast coast of England. They owned 13 houses along the coast and made their main income by renting out rooms to holidaymakers. March 21st, 2002 is the key date in this tale. That day, John was late coming home from work. Even though the family had the rental business, he still continued teaching. Anne grew increasingly worried, especially after calling the school and discovering he had left hours earlier. By evening, there was no point in waiting any longer, so she reported him missing to the police. The search began with interviews of neighbors. One neighbor said he had seen a man who looked very much like John walking toward the beach carrying a canoe earlier that day. Everyone knew John loved canoeing, so the police took the sighting seriously. A major operation was launched on the water. More than 40 personnel, 3 helicopters, 6 rescue boats. The search cost around £150,000 and lasted over 16 hours. John was never found. What was found, however, was his paddle and a badly damaged canoe washed up on the shore. That evidence effectively ended any realistic hope of finding him alive. The authorities made the painful decision to call off the search. The family was devastated. No body was recovered, so a proper funeral was impossible. Everyone kept hoping the sea would eventually give him back. It never did. Roughly a year later, in 2003, John Darwin was officially declared dead. The most widely accepted explanation was that he had suffered a heart attack while out at sea and drowned. Now a widow, Anne continued living in the house, full of memories. In 2007, she made a dramatic decision. She sold all the properties and moved to start a completely new life. In Panama. Her sons were stunned by the choice. Then, only 3 months after Anne relocated to Panama, something unimaginable happened. On December 1st, 2007, 5.5 years after his disappearance, a man walked into a police station in London. He claimed he was suffering from amnesia and could remember almost nothing about the previous several years. Then he quietly added, "I think my name is John Darwin." Police quickly confirmed it really was him. His 2 sons, 31-year-old Mark and 29-year-old Anthony, were brought in for identification. Only when they saw the man in person did they accept that their father was somehow still alive. The story exploded into a full-blown national sensation overnight. Newspapers called it a miracle. Anne was still in Panama at the time. Every major outlet wanted her interview. The first journalist to get it was David Lee. On December 3rd, he sat down with her in Panama. She spoke emotionally about how shocked and overjoyed she was, and how desperate she was to see her husband again. When the interview finished, they said goodbye. Barely 2 hours later, there was another knock at Anne's door. It was David Lee again. He looked grave and said, "I'm so sorry. This is going to be very hard for you. Look at this picture." He showed her a photograph taken about a year and a half earlier. The moment Anne saw it, her expression collapsed. For nearly 5 minutes, she stood in total silence. Finally, she whispered, "I think this is awful." The very next day, the miraculously returned John Darwin was arrested. So what was in that photograph? And what had really been happening all those years? On the day he was supposed to have died, John did indeed paddle out to sea in his canoe, but he returned safely to shore in a quiet, deserted spot, deliberately punched several holes in the canoe, then drove to a nearby town and checked into a hotel under another name. That same evening, Anne reported him missing. For the next 5.5 years, John Darwin simply grew a beard and lived at home. Anne knew he was alive the entire time. With 13 rental properties, it was easy enough to give him a private room, usually in an attic. He moved around the town with surprising freedom, even though everyone believed he was dead. The biggest problem was identity documents. John solved it with grim ingenuity. He visited the local cemetery, found the grave of an infant named John Jones, who had been born on March 27, 1950, just a couple of months after Darwin himself, and had died after only 2 weeks. Using that baby's birth details, John obtained a passport in the name John Jones. The reason for the whole elaborate deception? Simple: crushing debt. Despite owning 13 houses, every single one was heavily mortgaged. Rental income could no longer cover the payments. Faking his death would allow Anne to claim a life insurance payout of £250,000, roughly £500,000 allowing for all adjustments. In today's money, that equates to about $1.5 million. The plan succeeded. In 2003, Anne received the death certificate and the insurance money. The debts were cleared, and the couple was left with around £200,000 to spare. During the early years, John stayed mostly indoors, spending hours at the computer. He became obsessed with online games. Through one of them, he met an American woman named Kelly Skill, a single mother raising a 10-year-old daughter. After months of messaging, they decided to invest in U.S. real estate together. John flew over, bought an old ranch in Kansas for $27,000, planning to renovate and flip it for a big profit. The sale took far longer than expected. Frustrated, John started sending Kelly threatening emails, vowing to kill her dog, burn her house down, and even hire the mafia to kidnap her daughter. Eventually, he returned to England empty-handed. After that, the couple began house hunting for a new life abroad: Cyprus, Greece, and several other sunny locations. Nothing worked out until they settled on Panama. In 2006, they bought a house there through an American real estate agency, and that is exactly where the plan finally unraveled. While preparing a follow-up story, journalist David Lee searched online for more information about the Darwins. He stumbled across the very same American real estate agency's website. There, in a customer testimonial photo dated 2006, stood a smiling John and Anne Darwin posing happily beside the agent. The picture obliterated any claim of amnesia or miraculous reappearance. Lee passed the image to the police. On December 4th, 2007, just 3 days after his return, John Darwin was arrested. At trial, John quickly confessed to everything. Anne claimed she had been manipulated and controlled by her husband. Both were sentenced to 6 years and 3 months in prison. The remaining assets were sold to repay the insurance company. Their sons completely cut contact with both parents, describing them as lying, rotten people. While they were imprisoned, John and Anne divorced. Both were released early in 2011. After his release, John moved to the Philippines, where he remarried a woman 25 years his junior. Anne tried to rebuild some kind of relationship with her sons, and, according to reports, has had limited success. She now lives quietly in Middlesbrough, England. The supposedly perfect plan collapsed because of one single photograph. Just one picture the couple never imagined would appear online erased 5.5 years of lies, a faked death, an insurance payout, and their new life in Panama. That random 2006 image from a real estate website became the final nail in the coffin of the entire scheme. Life proved once again, no matter how clever you think you are, one tiny overlooked detail can destroy everything.